Good morning, Mackenzie.
Hey,
How are you doing today?
good. How are you?
Pretty good. How's your morning going so far?
It's been good. Um, Pretty routine, nothing out of the ordinary yet. So,
That's good, considering you're in a new job and everything.
yes, yes.
So the last time we talked, you were figuring out a budget and everything like that.
Mhm.
How has that been since the last time we talked?
It's been good. I think I told you last time that we were gonna um evaluate the budget like 2 weeks into the month just to like see where we were at. And we were pretty on target with most things, which was nice. Um, I think one thing I talked to you about was eating out, like trying cutting back on that, and we've done a really good job of that. Um,
Nice.
Fortunately, um, in my 6 years of driving, I've never had like an accident or fender bender. And then now that I'm off my parents' payroll and adulting, I
Yes.
tapped the back of someone's car last week. And so we just
Oof.
got the quote to fix that. So I was pretty disappointed about that just because we were doing so well with the budget for this month. And then
Hmm.
obviously kind of out of my control. Now we have to now prices are increasing and it's messing with the budget a little bit, but that's okay.
So just from that experience, what have you learned, or what new insights have you gained from that?
Um, Honestly, just I guess realizing, and I think we had talked about like control a little bit too, but like knowing that accidents, mistakes, real life just happens, and that there are some things that this is why you save money and this is why you have extra because when stuff goes wrong, which it's bound to, because that's just life, like
Hmm.
you have that extra cushion a little bit.
Yeah, unfortunately, life happens.
Yep. Yep.
Get your
And
plan, and then
I
life is
think I
there.
was just more so mad at myself because I had just gotten this new Apple Watch and I was on my way to an appointment and it buzzed. I was stopped at a stoplight and it buzzed and I looked down for a quick second and then next thing you know, I'm like touching the car in front of me. I didn't even feel
Uh,
myself like tap them or anything, but and it wasn't bad, but now I know don't check my Apple Watch even at a stoplight, even if it's buzzing at me.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's okay. Live and learn, right? But I think
Yeah.
I just gave myself a hard time about that because I was like, that could have been so easily avoided. But
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. You've been a
oh,
bender
it's
and
okay.
things happen. I do celebrate with you for, learning uh,
Yes.
a new boundary while you're driving
Yep.
and everything. So,
Ugh.
all right. So, what would you like to talk about in this discussion today?
Um, Honestly, I would be fine to continue talking about like maybe more so of like the control side of things. And like, I think I just, with this accident this week, I give myself like a really hard time. Like, I think I overload myself I put more pressure on myself than anybody else does. And so for me, this one small accident was like the end of the world. I was like, I cannot even believe this. And of course, I talked to Hunter about it, and he was like, Ken's
Hmm.
like, it's not a big deal. Like that easily could have been me, could have been someone could have hit you. Like it just he was not upset about it at all. But for me, it's like I just for whatever reason have like hold myself to like this really high standard. And so it's really hard for me to like loosen up and forgive myself, I think.
Okay. So with you talking about putting pressure on yourself and being hard on yourself, is there what particular goal would you like to achieve with our conversation?
Um, I think the biggest thing for me would probably be just knowing that other people make mistakes too. This stuff happens in life to other people, like not maybe not lowering my expectations of myself, because I think that doesn't sound right, but I mean, like having more grace and forgiveness and patience with myself, I think. um Knowing when to get out of my head and stop thinking about it and stop worrying about it.
Okay. So when unfortunate things happen to you, um, what does putting pressure on yourself look like?
Probably, honestly, just a lot of like negative self-talk in a sense, like not being able to turn those thoughts off. So it's like, 5 days later, what am I still thinking about? Like that's just, it's in the back of my mind. And it's something that like, okay, you know, it happened. We're working on it right now. You know, things aren't going to be resolved immediately. But just like knowing when to push that out of my mind and stop like thinking about it. Because I think the more I think about it, the more I dwell on it, the more it starts to affect me, like personally, and just how I go about my days. Um, when it's just something that I'm constantly thinking about.
When you do think about something and you threw out the time frame 5 days later,
Yeah.
um, I'm curious, how soon do you want to not worry about something?
Mm. Honestly, 24 hours would be nice. um, because again, at that point, it's like, you've thought about it, you've had your time to be like, man, that this just really stinks. Like, this is just not fun. It's unfortunate. But then to just be like, you know what? But these things happen, and I'm not going to let this dictate like my attitude or my mood or my behaviors throughout the day. Because obviously, when you think about something constantly, like it truly does have an effect on you. And so, um, I think giving myself like 24 hours to be like, man, this just really stinks, and then just push it out of my mind.
How did you arrive at the 24-hour mark?
It's a good question. Um, I can't remember. There was some podcast I was listening to. I don't know if you've heard of the Watermark Church, like in Dallas.
Absolutely, because
Okay,
I'm from
okay.
Dallas. Yeah, so
Yes,
I know
right.
all
Yes.
about it.
Okay, perfect. Well, they have that like young adult ministry called The Porch. And so I'm
Yes.
pretty
Mhm.
sure I was listening to one of their porch podcasts, and they were just kind of talking about how, I mean, I forget exactly what the scripture of the verse is, but talking about how like important it is for us to control our thoughts and our minds and to think about, you know, holy, heavenly, good things. But just kind of like walking you through how do I alter my thoughts, because it's a lot easier said than done. And I think that they had something that came up with like the 24-hour rule, like give yourself time to like process, to think about it, to be upset, and then go from there. And then at that point, it's out of your hands. I mean, at the end of the day, God's the one in control, not you. So I think just let go and let God, or whatever that saying is, I guess.
after you heard that podcast with
Mhm.
Watermark, what was your first reaction to it?
Um, I thought, man, that seems impossible,
Mm,
especially for myself, for one that like I'm a big overthinker. I just constantly like I don't know, that's just how I'm wired, I guess. But um yeah, I think my first initial reaction was like, wow, that's hard. But I mean, it was good. And honestly, I probably should go back and find it and re-listen to it because I mean it was a really good lesson. And I don't know if that was the bulk of the lesson or if it was just kind of like a snippet of what they were talking about. But I was just like, wow, that's good stuff. That's hard. And they even admitted, like it is hard, but it's something that we should be doing, I guess.
so your first reaction to it is or was it's impossible.
Hmm.
So when you said that, that made me curious. What is possible for Kinsey when an unfortunate event happens?
Well, I'd like to say 24 hours could be possible, but I think I would need to start slow and work my way into it. I mean, they always say that like if you create a goal for yourself, you should make that more realistic because chances of you going from 0 to 100 in a day is just not it's not realistic. It's not likely to happen. But I mean, even going from like 24 hours to 2 days. But then I think the big thing is like, even if I'm thinking about it, I can't let it impact my mood because I think that's really easy to do
Mm,
because it's like, oh, this happened. I know how much money this is going to cost us, and I'm like, I'm upset about it. And so whenever I'm talking to Hunter, I'm like, I'm not happy because I'm just so upset because I feel like, oh, I've wasted so much money because I was being careless. Um, so I mean, I think the biggest thing would be even if I'm thinking about it, to not let it impact my actions and my behaviors. And not that I take it out on him or whatever. It's just, that's your person, that's who you talk to about this kind of stuff. But unfortunately for me, I think that the more I think about something, the more it does impact my behavior. So it's like it's better to just shut off. Maybe not shut off completely, but like just got to push it to the side. And as far as like a time frame, I mean, 24 hours would be great, but maybe it's two days or 3 days or something like that.
2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do you feel comfortable with?
Two, two, I feel like would be ideal. Three is just kind of a little excessive to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that, and I'm like, here I am right now, and we're on like what, day 7 or something.
So you've established a time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it look like in those 2 days for you to process an unfortunate event and then move past it?
Um, I mean, I think it's okay to be upset about what happened. Um, Especially when it's like, oh gosh, I could have easily avoided that if I hadn't looked at my new Apple Watch when it started buzzing at me. Like that just seems so simple. That's like driving 101. But um I don't know. I think being able to talk about it too, like talk about it with Hunter and be like, oh, I just can't believe like I'm just super upset about this happening. Um, but even just like receiving the reassurance and affirmation from him that like it's okay. Like this is not the end of the world. I'm more of the worried spouse and he's more of the chill, like it's gonna be okay. Like so it's a good offset balance for both of us, I think.
Sounds
But
like it, yeah.
it's really nice to hear from him, like that reassurance that like it's gonna be okay. So you don't have to worry about it. Like it's gonna be fine. But I think a big thing would probably be just talking about it, being upset with myself, and then I don't know, just having to move on at some point. And I think a lot of that would just come from prayer, even just asking God, like, can you please help me with my thoughts right now? Like, I just cannot seem to get these out of my head. Um, Maybe even like doing an activity to like distract myself. Um, we went and rode four-wheelers the other night with some friends, and then we went and played pickleball, and that was just like a really good distraction for me because we're kind of like trying to decide what we want to do about the situation right now.
Mhm.
But like that was a good distraction for me, like when we were able to go and have fun together, me and Hunter were, and I'm not projecting anything on him.
So when unfortunate events happen, like the fender bender,
Mhm.
um, what usually keeps you from getting a healthy distraction to help you move on?
Mm, I don't know, probably just it's myself. I mean, I would say that
Mhm.
I'm the obstacle because rather than choosing, I think it's a choice rather than choosing to do something fun and be like, I'm just not going to worry about this anymore. Once I get in my head, it's like a rabbit hole. And it's so easy to just continue go down this rabbit hole of like, well, what's going to happen? How much is it going to cost? All of these things. I don't know. I think it's just easy for me to do. It's easier for me to go down a rabbit hole than it is for me to pull myself out and find something else to think about.
Okay, so you have this unfortunate event happen. What would be your ideal reaction to it?
Ooh. Well, it'd be nice if I could say, oh man, oh well, like I'm so sorry that I hit you guys. Like, I'm so sorry about this happened. But then thinking to myself, like, oh, it's okay. Like these things happen. This could have happened whether I was on my parents' insurance or whether I was on my insurance, my own insurance. But I think just being like, oh well, and move on from there, I guess. I don't know. That
Um,
seems like so out like crazy for me to even say, but just oh we'll figure it out. Like I'm gonna being logical, I think like, what, I'm gonna wait for the estimate I'm gonna talk about it with Hunter. I'm gonna wait for the estimate to come in. And well, I'm gonna wait for my insurance company to contact me first. And then I'll wait for the quote to come in, and then we'll sit down together and we'll evaluate it and we'll figure out what's best for us rather than immediately going straight to like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this just happened, like freaking out frantic. I think for me, I need to like break it down logically and say like, you know, oh well, this happened. Like we'll figure it out though. It's not the end of the world.
um, I've noticed that when you create your ideal situation, Hunter is that first person
Yeah.
to process and help you feel grounded. So, what does that look like after something just really happened? What does that look like with incorporating Hunter to get you back grounded?
Um, like I said, Hunter's more of the logical thinker, and I'm more of the, oh my goodness, I can't believe this just happened. Like the world is ending. Um, so whenever I get in my head, I usually will just like come home and sit down with him and we'll just talk about it. And I'm a big like words of affirmation person. That's like my love language. But even just like reassurance in general, like that's just something that he's always been really good about with me. And so I think I've gotten used to that. And so I'm like, I really just need some reassurance right now that like it's all going to be okay. So when something like that happens, typically how it goes is I get in my head about it and I come home and I talk to him because it usually makes me feel better, like being able to communicate and talk about that, but then also just like hearing from, I mean, I would say he's a pretty wise person too, but even just being able to hear like his reasoning, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like that was so silly of me to think this because it's just not going to happen that way. Like I'm getting down this rabbit hole and I need to pull myself out. And he's just so good about doing that, helping me see the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess. That sounds dramatic, but.
No, that was good. So you've mentioned some good things that would help you and support you through an unfortunate event. I heard the Watermark podcast helped you wrap your mind around getting into that mindset. I heard talking with Hunter and processing it and getting those words of affirmation and things like that. Even though we can't predict or say, when this happens, when this unfortunate event happens, how will you handle it? But let's create, like a faux unfortunate event. And with those things that you mentioned that will help support you, what would those 2 days look like? The ideal 2 days of you feeling supported, you feeling heard, and getting words of affirmation. So the unfortunate event just happened. Okay. What are you doing next? And moving forward, what are you going to
do? Now what I would do is probably first reaction, not to freak out. Just, man, that was completely my fault, accept full responsibility. I'm sorry about that. Like this really stinks for me. But then just being able to like walk myself through, like before even having to go to Hunter or anywhere else, but like maybe just like taking a second to like take a deep breath and say, okay, well, here's what's going to happen next. So for instance, of the fender bender, like to just sit down and say, okay, well, there's nothing I can do about it right now. I'll wait for them to file a claim. But in the meantime, like, I'm not going to think about it until something happens or I hear something. It's in their hands now. I've done everything that I can do in that situation, but it's in their hands. So I'm going to wait for that. And then when we get that quote or the, estimate or whatever, then I'll sit down with Hunter again and we'll talk about it. But I mean, I think just walking myself through the process and the steps of like, okay, here's what's going to happen. Because I think initially I'm just, like I've said, my first instinct is to just freak out and lose control of my emotions. And really it should be to just calm down, take a deep breath and think logically and realistically. That's probably something I could have done like immediately after that situation happened, was just to like breathe and take a deep breath and calm down. Because I think initially I was like, oh, I've got to call Hunter. I've got to call my dad because my dad knows what to do. And, I've never been in this situation before. So I think just taking a deep breath, but then and walking myself through everything. And then second would be like, whenever I do talk to Hunter about it, like allowing that to be, I mean, a safe space, obviously, but like, I think for me, I need that reassurance, but then it's so easily lost. Like the next day, it's like, okay, I need reassurance again. And that's not how it should be. So I think really taking his reasoning and his logic to heart. And like when I start thinking those thoughts again, and those thoughts come up, to just okay, well, remember what Hunter said and remember this logical process of things that's going to happen. Like, it's going to be okay. And using those thoughts and words as a way to like push out the bad or whatever. And then I think, of course, just like praying about it too is a big thing. Like asking God, like, hey, I can't do this on my own. Can you please help me with my thoughts in my head? Because right now the devil's winning and I just really need some help because I just don't think that's something that is easily done on your own. At least in my situation, it's not. So, but I think that's how I would handle that situation next time. And I think, like I mentioned, I haven't heard that podcast in a while, but even going back and just re-listening to that would probably be a good reminder for me as well.
That was really good.
Thanks.
Yeah. You processed everything. Even from the moment that the unfortunate event happened, I heard you taking a deep breath. That will help you center yourself.
Yeah.
And then knowing that Hunter is there for you. You were very focused when you gave that plan.
Mm-hmm.
So just processing all of that out. What's your reaction to it?
Proud of myself, I guess.
Yay! That's awesome.
Yeah, that's not something that I usually do, but obviously, but I mean, I think it helps.
Yeah.
Even for me, like I feel a lot better about it right now.
Well,
There's
that's
still
good
some
because,
things we have to do, but
well, I was going to say I'm proud of you, but I definitely wanted you to be proud of yourself,
yeah.
you know?
Right.
So, seriously, Mackenzie, that was a really good plan right there.
Okay.
I'm glad and I celebrate with you that you're proud of yourself. Um, we have a couple of minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to ask, what was your top 3 takeaways from this conversation today?
Top 3. One would probably be appreciating the fact that, like, even just thinking about this, but like, it could have been so easy for me to go home and Hunter be like, Mackenzie, what in the world? Like, almost mad. Like, why would you, how could you be so irresponsible? Like, you really have to pay more attention, whatever. But I think just appreciating the fact that, like, my husband is patient with me, and he's forgiving of me. And I think that's something that is really special about him because, um, it very could have been for him to be like, oh, I'm so frustrated with you right now. Like, but have him being understanding and empathetic of me was like, I think that's something that's a big deal that I don't always like acknowledge even about him. For myself, I think a big takeaway for me is just knowing that, like, it's not impossible. Like, all it takes is just a deep breath and like some patience with myself to sit down and be like, okay, it's going to be okay. I don't need to start going down a rabbit hole. Like, I'm fully capable. It's just about controlling my mind. And then another takeaway, third one, would probably just be for me, knowing the fact that like I'm not in this alone is really nice. I've got a great support system around me. I've got Hunter, I've got my family. Knowing that I can go to God anytime I need to, or find like these online podcasts that are full of great like wisdom and knowledge is really nice. It's just knowing something that like that's a way that I can be filling my cup and thinking about good things this way instead of dwelling on the bad. So,
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for
yeah,
your time
yeah,
and look forward to your growth.
thanks. All right.